Logan Paul and KSI built what looked like a billion-dollar empire selling colored water to teenagers, and now it's falling apart faster than Logan's reputation after the forest incident. Prime wasn't supposed to be just another drink. It was supposed to replace Gatorade, prove that two YouTubers could walk into a serious industry and take it over. Instead, it turned into proof that hype without substance doesn't last. Gatorade was built by sports scientists who actually studied hydration. Red Bull spent years building a formula and an entire category. Prime was basically a rebranded sports drink with loud packaging and influencer faces. It wasn't selling hydration, it was selling access, one bottle at a time. At first, that worked. The colors were loud, the marketing was everywhere, and kids treated Prime like status. Not because it tasted good, because Logan and KSI said it was the thing to have. For a minute, Prime felt unstoppable, but that doesn't last forever. And to see why, you have to go back to how they launched it. In 2022, Logan Paul and KSI were on top. They had fake beef turned into friendship, comeback storylines, and millions of loyal fans ready to buy anything with their names on it. They looked at the beverage industry, a space run by billion-dollar companies with decades of research, and basically said, yeah, we can do better. Prime wasn't marketed like a normal drink. It was marketed like a club. The bottles weren't aimed at athletes. They were aimed at teenagers who wanted to flex. Limited drops, restocks timed with YouTube uploads, exclusive flavors that felt rare on purpose. Parents were literally driving around just to find one bottle for their kid. People were flipping Prime for insane markups. At one point, kids were trying to resell bottles for $50. For sugar water, they didn't sell electrolytes. They sold belonging. And it worked so well that Logan and KSI started thinking they were geniuses. That's where the cracks started. Because once your entire brand is built on hype, you have to keep feeding that hype forever. And that's where Prime started making the mistakes that would wreck it. This is where Prime started to fall apart. Logan and KSI made the same 3 mistakes every overhyped brand makes. Mistake number 1, they thought celebrity could replace quality. Outside their fan base, people were dragging the taste. Flavors got called way too sweet, chemical, fake sugar, cough syrup. Once the hype cooled off, Prime wasn't being treated like this premium athlete drink. It was being clowned as candy water in a neon bottle. When your product tastes mid, clout can't cover it forever. Mistake number 2, they got reckless. Prime Energy wasn't just the same bright branding. Now it came with around 200 milligrams of caffeine in a single can. That's basically 2 Red Bulls in one hit, and it was still getting pushed in front of the same young audience that was already obsessed with Prime. Schools started banning it. Parents were mad. Health experts warned it wasn't safe for kids. Lawmakers stepped in. U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer publicly called out Prime and asked the FDA to investigate, saying the cans looked like normal sports drinks but hit like a double espresso, and that teens were treating it like a status symbol. Mistake number 3, they ignored how business actually works. You can't build a long-term brand on hype alone, especially in a category already owned by companies with decades of trust. Prime ran into Gatorade, Monster, Celsius, Body Armor, real players with real distribution and staying power, and acted like they'd win just by yelling louder online. That's not how this works. But that still wasn't the worst part. The real hit wasn't just angry parents or politicians. It was something way more expensive. After the hype wave, the real damage started showing, and it wasn't just kids getting wired in class. It turned legal. Prime started getting hit with lawsuits. One class action said Prime Hydration was advertised like a clean, healthy sports drink while allegedly containing PFAS, the so-called forever chemicals people worry about because they don't break down and can build up in the body. The claim is basically, you told parents this was safe hydration, then sold them something that wasn't what the label promised. Those are active accusations in court. Then there was the caffeine problem. Prime Energy cans were showing up in kids' backpacks, even though each can had around 200 milligrams of caffeine, more than what you'd get from a can of Red Bull, closer to a double espresso. Schools started banning it. Parents were saying their kids had heart palpitations and ended up in urgent care after chugging more than one. One family said their 14-year-old had to get rushed in for a cardiac episode. That's when politicians jumped in. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer publicly called out Prime and pushed the FDA to investigate, saying Prime was being sold like a harmless sports drink, but was really a high-stimulant product marketed straight to teenagers who saw Logan Paul and KSI as heroes. He said cashiers should be checking IDs for this stuff. When senators start talking about your drink like it's a controlled product, that's not internet drama anymore, that's national attention. But here's the part Logan and KSI did not want people to see. The biggest threat wasn't parents or the FDA. It was their own supplier. Their own bottling partner is the one that really came for them next. The moment that really exposed how bad things were getting didn't come from parents or senators. It came from Prime's own bottling partner. Prime's drinks were being produced through a deal with Refresco, a huge manufacturing company that reworked its plants and built custom production lines just to pump out those Prime bottles. Refresco says they didn't just help, they invested millions and locked in a long-term agreement because Prime, through its parent company Congo Brands, promised massive non-stop demand for years. Then the hype started cooling off, and suddenly Prime wasn't moving like it used to. According to the lawsuit Refresco filed, Prime backed out of the deal, didn't follow through on what it said it would buy, and basically walked away from the production line Refresco had already built for them. Refresco is now asking for around $68 million, saying Prime promised to buy millions of cases per year and then just stopped, leaving them holding the cost. That's not internet drama, that's your supplier taking you to court for almost $70 million because sales fell off and you couldn't keep up the orders you bragged about. And that's the point where the image really cracked. On YouTube, Logan and KSI were still shouting that Prime was exploding worldwide, but behind the scenes, their main producer was basically saying, "You overpromised, you couldn't deliver, now pay up." The lawsuits even describe Prime's sales as dropping hard and make it sound like the company was already looking overseas to chase new markets after burning through the US hype. From the outside, Prime still looked loud. From the inside, it looked desperate. Then the numbers hit. By mid-2024, the sellout craze was gone. Prime wasn't flying off shelves anymore. It was sitting there. In the UK, revenue crashed by around 70%, dropping from well over £100 million the previous year to somewhere in the low £30 million. Profit basically vanished too. Pre-tax profit fell over 90%, down to a few $100,000. That is a brand going from "this is the future" to "we're in trouble" in 1 year. And it wasn't just the UK. In the US, sales dropped by about 40% in the first half of 2024. That's brutal, because other energy and hydration brands, Monster, Celsius, Body Armor, were still growing. So while Prime was slowing down, the competition was quietly taking its customers. Those companies didn't have to scream online. They just kept selling drinks people actually liked the taste of, without the drama. Stores felt it immediately. The same 12 packs that used to be treated like gold were getting slapped with clearance stickers. Cases that were once going for $20, $25 were suddenly marked under $10 just to move inventory. Shelves that used to be chaos and sold out signs turned into rows of Prime bottles collecting dust like last year's trend. Retail went from panic buying to "please take this." On top of that, Prime was getting hit from angles normal brands almost never deal with. The US Olympic and Paralympic Committee sued them, saying Prime used Olympic branding and even pushed a Kevin Durant Team USA-style tie-in without approval. The claim was that Prime tried to borrow Olympic credibility that legally belongs to Coca-Cola in that category. When you're getting sued right before the Olympics for acting like your official Team USA, that's not clean marketing. That's desperation to stay relevant. Meanwhile, Logan and KSI kept doing loud promo and talking global expansion, but the reality was ugly. Core markets were cooling, profit was evaporating, lawsuits were stacking, and even their own supplier was demanding tens of millions because demand wasn't matching the story anymore. And once the hype breaks in stores, it breaks online next. The final warning sign wasn't in a boardroom, it was on kids' phones. The same audience that used to treat Prime like treasure started roasting it. TikTok switched from "I finally got Prime" to "look how long this Prime has been sitting in my fridge untouched." People were filming shelves full of Prime, on clearance, and clowning it. The hype flipped into embarrassment. Then the reviews got ugly. Some Prime flavors started pulling low ratings, with people calling them chemical, way too sweet, fake sugar aftertaste, even saying the drink tasted like regret in liquid form. Parents complained it wasn't what it was marketed as. Older buyers said it felt more like candy than hydration. And once regular customers, not just fans, start dragging taste, you're done, because you can't influencer spin flavor. Either people want to drink it again, or they don't. And at that point, the story changed. Prime stopped being the future of hydration. It became a warning. Parents didn't trust it. Schools didn't want it. Regulators were watching it. Stores were discounting it. And online, the same fans who built the hype were laughing at it. But even all of that still isn't the core reason Prime collapsed. The real reason is bigger than flavors, bans, or lawsuits. In the end, the lawsuits, bans, and angry headlines weren't the cause. They were the symptoms. The core problem was arrogance. Prime tried to out-hype taste, safety concerns, supplier obligations, and decades of industry experience. That works for a launch, not for a legacy. Hype gets you the first sale. Quality earns the second. Prime promised elite hydration and delivered something people stopped finishing. It pushed a high caffeine can in the same ecosystem packed with kids, then claimed it was for adults. It signed giant supply deals like the momentum would never stall. And when it did, the bills showed up anyway. That's the difference between viral fame and an actual business. Noise isn't a strategy. Followers aren't a foundation. You can borrow credibility for a while, but But when the shelf dust settles, only the product is left standing. So was Prime doomed from the start? Or could Logan and KSI have saved it if they focused on fixing the drink instead of shouting over the problems? Drop your take below. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit like and subscribe. The next downfall is already loading.